Morning, Dan. How are you?
Morning. Doing good.
Good morning, Lucy.
Hello. Hi. Nice to meet you.
Hi there. Nice to meet you too. Since we have moved the time to accommodate your special calendar constraint, I suppose we will be losing a few of our regulars. So that's
I'm sorry about.
I think one of those inevitables that we'll have to deal with. So let's maybe give a few minutes. Hi, Roger, to see joining. And Dan, since you've been really working with Lucy on the preparation of this, I trust you would be able to introduce her and do the general interaction as we discussed earlier. Is it okay?
Sure, happy to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's give it another couple of minutes, and we'll.
I guess is it early in the day for some of your folks as well? Where are most people based in your network?
Well, people are actually across all time zones. So whoever is in California are on the early bird part of the schedule, and then we have usually lots of folks in East Asia who will be really getting ready to their bedtime by the time we talk. Anyway, so let's just take another minute or two. I'll just switch for a second.
One of the participants here, Niall, he was out on an expedition recently, crossing an ice field, like many days.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm curious if he'll join.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
How often does this group meet then, Daniel?
Once a month.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and during the pandemic, it was for about 2 years. We're meeting once a week.
Okay.
And
well, if I have messed up the timing of everything, I'm happy to do it again on another call if people aren't available. It's fine, or just share materials for people if they're interested.
Yeah, my understanding they're going to record it, or it looks like it already is recording. So I think they will post it to there's a chat group and.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. I think that's an important functionality of the virtual world these days. That since we have an ability to record things, then people in the distant time zones can always watch it back later. Which is great. And then I think for our today's function, Molly, are you there under the Freeland tag? Because I think
Yes, I'm here. I'm just doing a couple checking everything on our live stream, making sure everything's working, but it's looking good.
Yeah, and then I mean, since you will be showing a few things that would also kind of weave into what we would like to discuss with Lucy, but Dan, have you, Molly, have you been in touch lately with Alina? Because I think, it would be important if she is indeed here to, let me see.
Yes, I hear that she's been working a lot on Earth Team, but I'll text her to see. I think she was going to be joining, but I'm not sure.
Great. Well, while we're waiting, for those of us who are on the call, maybe we can start with just a round of global updates. I know people have been busy this past year, springtime, a lot is happening in the world. And yeah, we could just hear just a couple updates from wherever you happen to be.
Well, I can briefly mention, and so maybe if we just first, for the sake of Lucy, have a quick round of introduction of who is already connected.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Okay, since I'm already talking, I'm Andrei Kushlin. I'm now located in Moscow, Russia. That's where I'm from, but I'm a kind of a global citizen. Worked for 22 years at the World Bank in Washington, and then also at the FAO in Rome on forestry and biodiversity conservation issues and various global partnerships. So I've been part of this End Pandemics Coalition since day one, back now 3 years ago. So it's been an amazing journey, right, Dan? So yes, and then so Roger and Molly and Esther and Lina, maybe you can give us just a quick few words of who you are so that Lucy understands who is at the call.
Hi, Lucy. Yeah, I'm Roger Leakey. I'm a retired researcher who used to work on the interface of numerous disciplines associated with the development of nature-based systems for regenerative agriculture in the tropics. Looking particularly at how to make sure that subsistence farming meets the needs of the people, but also of the planet.
Hello everyone, my name is Esther. This is the first time I'm participating in this meeting representing World Animal Protection. I've been involved with emergency interventions for a few years now. I'm now working with the animal welfare team in World Animal Protection.
Welcome, Esther. Where are you based, by the way?
I'm based in Costa Rica.
Costa Rica, okay. Fantastic.
Tell that by the toucan in the background.
Yeah. Very tropical.
Hi, I'm Molly Farrell. I am a storyteller of all sorts. I do photography, filmmaking, writing, both in kind of a journalism sense and in doing communications work for nonprofits. I work part-time with Freeland. I also produce the Freeland Film Festival. And I'm helping with the social media and communications for End Pandemics as well. I mostly focused on environmental storytelling, some human rights, mostly environmental and wildlife related storytelling work.
Where are you based, Molly?
I'm based in Mexico right now. I used to be based in Thailand, which is how I connected with Freeland. And now I'm based in Mexico for the last 6 years.
And we also have Alina just joined, a key contributor to our conversation today on communications. Alina, say a few words about who you are so that Lucy understands a little bit your background.
Right. So yeah, sorry, I had completely missed that this had moved out today, so I didn't see this. Sorry for the late joining. Yeah, I mean, I've been involved with this coalition since the very beginning, back in 2020 March. It's been a while, and I have a background in creative leadership that I've done for many years, and part of that has also been brand storytelling. So that's partly what I've been focused on, but mostly I do like high-level strategic planning for organizations, companies, etc., how to do the transition from being traditional in the way of making business or creating impact into a sustainable, regenerative way of doing it. So it's like helping shift this. And so currently I'm involved with helping to set up this Earth team thing that we're building, and we're still very much in the early building phases of it and have very little to show right now. But we certainly want to create like it's almost like it's an extension of what this coalition is, where we're then hubifying everything that we're and everyone who we are, and making this platform of learning and solution sharing and knowledge sharing. And so we're in the middle of shaping all of that. Yeah, I think that would be a very brief update on me. I'm Elina. I'm based currently in Copenhagen, Denmark, for as long as that lasts, and then I'll be elsewhere in the world, probably.
Okay, we have Lena, Fred just joined, and also JC. Again, we're just doing a quick round for those who are just joining, so that our keynote speaker today, spotlight speaker today, Lucy, has a sense of our community. So just go ahead with a couple of sentences about yourselves. Lena, Fred, and JC.
Hi, I'm Lena from Preventing Pandemics at the Source. We're a coalition of 20 organizations, nonprofits working across health, animal welfare, and environment. And we're focused on advocacy around spillover prevention. And we're partners of End Pandemics for, I think, a little while now. And I'm based in Montreal.
Thanks. Fred?
Hello, I'm Fred Sullivan. I'm Executive Director of Man Up campaign. It's to stop gender-based violence around the world. And we engage the youth in solving the SDG most important in their community, which is sometimes climate, sometimes biodiversity, all kinds of different things. One health, or human health in different ways. So engage that on the Finance for Development Committee. So input into a lot of development in the UN. And I have Blue Ocean Future, which we're making up a systematic way to interface area-based investment in the ocean and coast. So.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jean-Christophe JC. I'm coming from Switzerland. I live in the US, and I think everything is linked, nature, social impacts, and so I thought it would be a very good experience for me to come and listen to what you all have to say, guys. My specialties is trying to make this planet greener and hopefully livable for the next generation. So in brief, this is who I am. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, JC. So Dan, why don't I hand it over to you? Well, I assume you and Lucy know each other, so you don't need to introduce yourself to her. But then why don't you now introduce Lucy, and then we will start with a couple of short updates from our team members, both of them on the communication aspects of what we are doing. Molly on social media, and Elina on this strategic communication things that you mentioned. In no particular order, you choose which one would prefer to go first, and that will also feed into what we would like for you, Lucy, to share with us your whole point of communicating nature solutions for strategic impact. So Dan, over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Andre. It's my pleasure to welcome Lucy today. Lucy, thanks for joining and giving an update on yourself and Nature for Climate as well. I know you'll jump into a complete presentation shortly, so I won't say too much, but I will say that I've had the pleasure of working with Lucy for I guess it's been a few years now, actually, lead up to COP27. And when I got involved with an initiative called Nature Tech, and ran a series of design sprints and we worked together to kind of design those experiences. And some of that, I think some folks here at and Pandemics participated in some of those facilitations after COP27. And then things kind of went their separate ways a little bit in terms of like what I thought I was going to be doing to carry the torch with Nature Tech formally. But as it so happens, I'm now working with the MRV Collective, which is very similar, actually. And so we've kind of re-engaged in our collaborations, and it's really wonderful to see how both nature and climate, they're really part of the same problem, part of the same solution, depending on where you're looking. And we'll hear a lot more about Nature for Climate shortly. But yeah, I'd love to turn it over to you, Molly and Alina, to give us a bit of an update on the communications and strategy that you've been working on, what I understand, and to give us a little bit of context for our communications theme today, for this month's town hall.
Should I go first?
Sure, go for it. I think mine's going to be pretty short compared to yours.
Well, mine, but it's so, yeah, it's like asking a mechanic mid-engine, what are you up to? It's almost where we're at, because we're building Earth Team. So who's Earth Team? It's us. It's everyone who wants to work on all these issues. And what we want to do is to create a space, a place, a platform, a digital room that we can all meet up in, where we have accessible to us case studies and good stories of, good practices of something that we can be inspired by, learn from. And then we want to have certificate programs where you can actually be certified something by going through a self-learning system, or one of those systems where it's just like Khan Academy, where it's like one thing takes you to the next. So we're setting that up. We're launching that in this month. So we're testing that with our first cohort very soon. We want to have like these and pandemics webinars that we've had, these town halls, things like this should also be available. So all these sorts of things where you can learn, you can listen, you can share, you can connect with others. We want to. Sorry, was that? Oh, maybe it was just okay. So anyways, that's what we're in the middle of building. And right now we're kind of stress testing this system that we're trying to get a lot of round balls fitted into this kind of boxy box. So that's kind of where we're at currently, in trying to figure out how can we make all of what we want, which is a bit of a hybrid system that we want to have fit into a learning management system. And so we're just in that process of trying to figure out what a good solution for that is technically. So, which is, not really my wheelhouse, but we have good people helping to figure out what we can and can't do. But that's generally it, and so right now we're very just absorbed in making it real, making it happen, making it work, which is why the high level strategic stuff is a little bit, oh yeah, maybe we're not fully, ready to talk about that in very concise terms. We should, as soon as we have something, we will do a presentation here so that everyone can have a walkthrough. We'll see, this is what's possible. These are the case studies. These are the courses. This is the solution hub, and this is who you can connect with, and this is the calendar, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now we're just in the glorious mess of getting everything built. So that's kind of any questions specifically to that at this point?
Yeah, so I mean, that's really interesting. One question I have is around you sort of, you're setting up a kind of digital hub, and I think it's primarily around learning and management, engaging people, communication, all of those things. Does it sit over and above a pre-existing network? So obviously you've got your End Pandemics network, but you called it Earth Team. Like, how, I'm just trying to understand like the size of the network you're trying to build in a way.
I mean, the short answer is there is hopefully no limit to that, because it should be a win-win for everyone to become part of it, because they would share stuff, they would get stuff, right now the answer to your question is we're building this from scratch. However, we're building this for and with all the coalition members in End Pandemics, for sure. You know, this is how it's been growing. So we hope that everyone would be willing and wanting to be part of it. And then hopefully it will just exponentially grow in membership, because it would be, there are many features, and I haven't spoken about certain donor maps and all the stuff that we want to also add further on, but we're just, first we want to do the prototype really well and beta test that with our first cohort, and then we expand that out so that we build the foundation right, and then we add on all these things that we see make sense for how it would grow in the best possible way. And that also comes with the use of, right? So we need to see how people engage and who engages and on what type of content and what draws and what doesn't, and what requires extra effort to get people onboarded, etc. Did that answer your question, actually?
Yeah, it did. Yeah. And I just have one more question, sorry, which is in terms of who you're ultimately trying to influence. I'm just wondering how much engagement you do directly with governments. Is it sort of, you know, are governments really your end target audience for most of your network?
I think first off, I think the governments are probably going to be very interested, because this should be and would be the place for most frontline organizations to meet up and coordinate. That's the big potential here. So maybe it's more of a frontline organization targeted, because it's Earth Team. You know, it's the people who are actively out there working to make the planet a greener, safer, more equal space, right? So our current tagline is protecting the planet. So that's kind of who we are. So it's frontliners, right? So the governments would hopefully be very interested, but it's because they see that, okay, oh, these guys actually show us how it matters to do something. So it's the action, it's the demonstration of action, and then also a lot of learning, right? The certificates and all that. And I can totally see, because there is a lot of that training from governmentally employed offices like customs offices, et cetera, there would be a lot of these courses that are for them, because it's wildlife trafficking, you know, how to recognize environmental intelligence, all of that stuff. There will be courses for all of those people. So in that respect, of course, the governments would be really interested in training their offices, if it's the police, if it's so and so and so. But again, it comes from the action of, the learning from, of, etc.
And I think that's one thing to add there, is that this is such a differentiator about End Pandemics and the Alliance here, is that it is such a number of these frontline organizations that have so much experience in the field, and that have, you know, are very rooted in place, and you know, governments, you know, politicians change, but these organizations remain the same, and even large organizations, large nonprofits, the individuals are changing, you know, frequently. But in many of the organizations here at End Pandemics, you have people who are in the same line of work for a number of years, you know, for many years in the same location. So they've you know, have a lot of education, a lot to contribute, actually. So I think it's really amazing to hear a little bit of these updates, Alina, yeah, and how you're thinking about things.
Yeah, a brilliant point. Thank you so much for saying that. That's exactly right. Yeah, any other questions to that? And you'll hear a lot more about it, and some of you are also going to be you know, reached out to very directly to help us, you know, in the prototyping, beta testing, et cetera, those steps. So, but yeah, feel free to reach out anytime if you have any more questions or curiosities or ideas, whatever, we can discuss.
Are videos included in this? What type of media is it? Or is it yeah?
It's video, slide presentations, photos. It's a mix of all of it. It's so how the courses are run. It's these mix of video, PowerPoints, slideshows. It's like you have the, okay, you now completed this module, you can now move on to, and you get all these. You get these very satisfying certifications once you've completed one thing and you move on to the next, and you can follow your progression. So that's what we're going to launch with, is this big kind of international trafficking, counter wildlife trafficking course is what we're going to launch with a cohort, and they're going to be testing it throughout. It's a well-tested course, but we're putting it into our framing here.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be that after I've sort of talked a little bit about what Nature for Climate does, there is I can see possibilities of kind of collaboration on this particular topic at places like COP and others where we're very present, and I'm sure you guys are, or some of your member organizations are. So maybe we can come back to that at the end. This is. It always feels to me like I'm working on kind of nature-based solutions over here in one place, and then when the conversation with the health and environmental crime movement is completely, you know, separate over here, and it's rare that we come together and talk about these issues as one. So perhaps that's something we could discuss at the end.
I think that would be super valuable. And so just personally, I come from a background of design systems thinking, and I work with the framework called life-centered design. I'm a designer and an entrepreneur by training. So I combine all of those things into this thing that is now known as the life-centered design approach. And it's just a way to make sure that it truly is holistic, in the sense that these things are interconnected, and we can't make any solutions, let alone nature-based solutions, if we don't work systemically with how we create these new ventures and solutions and efforts. And so, yeah, I'd love to return back and circle back and talk about this stuff. All right, I guess that was it for me. Molly, over to you then.
I have a question, just quick.
Oh, Fred, yes, hello.
So, hi, we're starting to, you know, line up the MOUs with the country.
Fred, we may have lost you.
Governance decision and so areas are actually protected, you know. So
Fred, I don't think we can hear you. Maybe we could try again in a little bit.
on certain technical skills, or governments on, you know, certain types of capacities related to their role.
I'm sorry, that we could barely hear any of that. It was just a few words here and there.
Yeah, I think Fred, we'll move on. Just in the interest of time, and we couldn't hear you. Yeah, we couldn't hear your question. Molly, why don't you go ahead with your update, and then let's jump to Lucy's presentation.
Okay. So I am working on trying to do kind of a new technique or a new strategy with our social media. We've brainstormed and we decided that we wanted to try to show the diversity of experience that is represented in our alliance. And we are hoping that by doing kind of a monthly feature of one of our alliance members, we'll be able to highlight that. Because we were thinking about, okay, we're this alliance, we have all this range of experience, we're global, but how do we tell that story? And really what we realized is that each one of our members has its own story that kind of, it's a puzzle, and all those pieces come together to help tell the story of the alliance. And one of the things we want to show on our social media is kind of that strength of kind of bringing all of these different backgrounds and this diversity of experiences together. And so, for people to see that and understand kind of that we represent that, but also just each one of our alliance members is really inspiring and their work is really inspiring. And so to try to highlight that and share that, rather than just sharing kind of, the principles of end pandemics or kind of broader concepts on our social media. So that's kind of what we've been discussing and just starting. And so this last month, we started with GEI, Global Environmental Institute in China. And they shared a couple different videos with me. We're trying to do more video content these days because we realized that it might be a little more engaging. But this is just, again, an experiment. So I'm really interested in hearing what you have to say about that. But so they made 2 short videos to share, and we just shared them in the past week because it took a little while to get permission to share them and to get the approved text and everything. And that's another thing I wanted to talk to you about, was like using text alongside videos. And usually a lot of times I think in environmental communications, we use a lot of text to explain, to try to get more in depth, but then in social media, you're also trying to keep things short and sweet. And so in these past posts, the text is a little longer. And again, this was based on kind of a prompt that I sent them, and I said a couple sentences and a short video. And so this is what they sent me, and I posted it directly, but I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. And I think they did a great job. And I'm just, I'm thinking about what kind of prompts I can give our next month's takeover, organization, and what maybe we can emphasize more. Again, since we just started this in the last week and a half, we don't have a lot of content here to show right now, but I'll show you what we have posted so far. And maybe you can give just some tips or any thoughts. Let's see. So this is our page. So this is a video made by Jingwei, who's an amazing, inspiring person. I'm trying to see if I can actually click on. Okay, there we go. Okay, so here's her video. I loved that she started it, with herself and made it personal. This is the text. I don't know if you can see the whole thing. Are you able to see all of it?
Yeah, we can see it just great.
Okay, great. I'm live streaming and recording and screen sharing, and there's so much on the screen. I'm not sure what you can see, but I'm glad.
Exactly what exactly what you want to show us. We see it. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, I'm gonna play her video.
My name is Jingwei from the Global Environmental Institute, and I will introduce to you our innovative approaches on facilitating transnational cooperation on combating illegal wildlife trade. On the border of China and Lao PDR, we are empowering local communities to help stop poaching and trading of wildlife, especially the Asian elephants. We use this model of community-based conservation, in which communities are incentivized to carry out conservation work in exchange for sustainable livelihoods development. This is how we do it in our project in Yunnan province in China. We sign an agreement with the local communities. They carry out patrolling and help guard the borders where the poaching often happens. Families that contribute to these activities can get a low-interest loan from a rotation fund. People in our Yunnan community have used the loans for rice growing, pumpkin production, as well as chili peppers. We also provided help to improve market access for their products, such as this delicious chili pepper sauce. The same model was applied in Lao PDR in Banua district in cooperation with a local NGO called Lao Biodiversity Association. They produced materials to help raise the awareness amongst local community members about the risks of poaching and trading wildlife. They engaged the kids in the communities and the adults. They also provided trainings for the adults on agriculture production to improve their livelihoods. This model of work received positive feedbacks from the local communities, our partners, as well as local governments. We expect to facilitate exchanges and information sharing between the communities on both sides of the border to better support enforcement against transnational wildlife trafficking. Hello there.
So there you go. That's one of them. I think she did such a great job. And they do such amazing work. So I'm not going to show you all of them, but like here's one that was shared by Freeland. Here's another one that was shared by GEI that you can just like briefly, I'm not going to play the whole thing, but you can see it's another video with the text on the side. This one's a horizontal video. That's more of a, you know, it's an edited.
Philippines is a wealthy nation from the metrics of wildlife.
Okay, so I don't want to take up all the time by sharing all the videos, but that's what we're doing right now. And then every month we have a post like this where we share you and what you're going to be talking about. And so yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts. It's just a really short little peek at, you know, the types of videos that we're hoping to create and kind of tell the stories of our members' work. And yeah, I'd love to hear your input.
Yeah, I mean, I love that film. It's great. And I really like the idea that you've got, I mean, if you've got so many frontline organizations where you can get the people who are actually doing the work, telling the stories, particularly young people, that's so powerful on social media. So I think doing more of that is definitely the way to go. In some ways, it's interesting because you've got an advantage over our members where we do have some frontline organizations, but they just tend to be a bit more kind of back office type. And the most successful content we've ever had is that was produced by our youth partner, who are called Youth for Nature, where they have frontline storytellers working on nature-based solutions. And they've come up with by far the most creative ideas for social media. They perform really well. And I think if you've got that, use that to your advantage, because I thought that was a really powerful video. Yeah, it was great. I mean, I think there's always the thing about social media is kind of keeping it as short as possible. So maybe that they can be, you know, down to more like 3 minutes than 5. It's very hard to cram those stories in, but I think it was great. And I mean, obviously it depends as to who your target audience is and who you're trying to reach. Like for us, a lot of what we do is for governments. So we tend to do a lot of reports and quite in-depth techie stuff. Our social media feed is sort of feels different from what you're producing here. So a lot of that will just be about, you'll know that, matching it to your audience.
So maybe trying to make sure that we choose more of our frontline members to share these stories from, you think would be a good.
I think so. Yeah, because that's what I mean. Just listen, I don't know a lot about what your work, but just listening to you guys talk earlier on, it seems like that's your real unique advantage, is drawing on the strengths of your frontline organizations who are really doing this work, and bringing the difficult subject matter to life through those personal stories. I've just got to, I apologize. My dog's barking. I'm just going to let her in. Just a second. 1 second.
We also see Evelyn came. Hi, Evelyn. Good to see you. Your name on the screen.
I just want to add as well, I mean, Molly, fantastic job pulling this together the way that you have. And I mean, we've been dreaming about doing this since March 2020. And now finally, you know, you're getting it done. And it's just so brilliant. And you're doing a bang up job at it. So I'm just so pleased to see it.
Thanks. I can't take credit for, I mean, that video was created by them and I thought they did such an amazing job, but I appreciate it. I'm happy to be bringing everyone together.
No, and that's the thing, you know, it's those, when you have this voluntary organization, it's like at some point, this coordination, this, but also curation and all of that stuff needs to pull things together. And it just, you know, it just takes time, resources, and a bright mind to actually also get it out there the way that this is now coming out. So yeah, kudos, great job.
One other thought. We, if you could create templates for people to insert kind of videos into, that really helps. So we did some where we wanted to try and have some of our partners' best content. A lot of them are just really, really busy doing their day jobs. So we tried to streamline how much input they actually had to do, and they could just collect videos on their phones, send them in, and then we would kind of do the editing and get them into a template form. That was a really successful thing for getting partner input.
That's a great idea. Yeah, because I've been thinking, I mean, they really put a lot of effort into these videos, and I was really impressed. I mean, that's not a small thing to compile all those photos and the voiceover and everything that she did. In general, they're overachievers on everything. They're so amazing. But I can't expect everybody to have the bandwidth to make something like that. So that's a really good idea. I mean, maybe when you say a template, maybe like, you know, a question with some text at the beginning and then their answer, that kind of thing. And then maybe a follow-up question and their answer, a 1 minute kind of something like that.
Yeah, exactly. And we sent out some guidelines, like just some simple guidelines, how to film it, which questions to answer, how short to keep things. And then what we got back was a real mix of quality. But we did have a professional filmmaker who then tries to cut it all together and make it look a little bit more professional for social media clips.
Great idea. That's a very good tip. I had not thought of doing a template, but that's absolutely I think that's going to be helpful and make everyone's work a little easier.
I mean, the other thought, given your work, over the years, we've been going for 7 years now as Nature for Climate, and the most successful social media work we ever did featured wildlife, and we still go back to that often, actually. So where we were able to use which wildlife kind of were good for carbon. We still say, you know, they still outperformed everything else we've ever done by a mile. And so obviously you have that on your side as well. So if you could bring that forward, I think they perform so well.
Okay, that's good to hear. We definitely have some wildlife footage. So.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's really helpful. Anyone else have any comments about it or thoughts? I'm also really open to hearing anyone's input.
So maybe we should switch to Lucy's presentation mode, so that then we could all hear what your kind of strategic vision is, and then we could incorporate a discussion of that into I mean, our things that Alina and Molly just showed, we could also discuss them in the same context. So I'm just mindful of the time. If we run a little over the 1 hour, hopefully it will be okay. We're doing it now also for the benefit of those who are not seeing us now, but will watch it on as a recording. So.
Great. Okay, thank you, Andre. I will try and keep it short. I've probably got too many slides, so I'll try and whiz through them. Let me just see if I can share my screen and see if that's okay. Okay, can you guys see?
Yes.
The screen. Great. So for those of you, I mean, I've got a background in communications. I've been a comms person for, 25 plus years. But I've been working on the Nature for Climate Coalition now since 2017. So I'm no longer really a comms practitioner. I kind of chair the coalition, and I've got into coalition building as such, but most of my background is in comms. So a lot of what you'll see for Nature for Climate is really fundamentally, it's a communications and advocacy initiative. So just a little bit of history for those who don't know. So we were set up in 2017. Basically, we're housed within the Nature Conservancy. So the Nature Conservancy set it up, and with the primary objective to really promote the role of nature-based solutions or natural climate solutions, or both, depending on where you're coming from, if you're interested in mitigation or adaptation or all of the other environmental benefits and social benefits that nature-based solutions bring. And when we first started out in 2017, we were, two or three of the large US environmental organizations who realized that within the main climate movement, nature was still taking a backseat. And so the aim was really to work together on communication and alignment, particularly getting alignment from all these organizations to help raise the profile of nature as a climate solution. And we've now got 20 plus partners, possibly going up to 22 in the next couple of months. Our kind of North Star goal is really around climate mitigation. So 10 gigatons of CO2 equivalent of natural climate solutions a year by 2030. Which is what the science says is both needed and possible from nature. And then we kind of work up from that, where we have outcomes around the amount of private sector capital and public finance flowing into nature-based solutions, government policies, and the kind of implementation. On top of that, we then say, right, given that's the case, here's our advocacy objectives. And then the sort of layer on top of that is really where the communications metrics come in, where we basically monitor the share of voice for nature within the climate communication, climate conversation, and the types of visibility and media coverage for nature-based solutions in their broadest sense. We also monitor, we've set up some social media monitoring, and I'd be very happy to share with you what that looks like. When we first started, we had a really sort of small group of, say, 50 people that we were monitoring on social media who were active and influential in the debate. And that's grown over time. We now monitor 1,000 names, and the movement is growing year on year. But having those social media metrics, even if they're only a proxy for all communications metrics, has been very helpful. In terms of our kind of where we've come from and where we're at, the story we tell is one of when we first started, we were less than 1% of the kind of climate conservation. And also less than 3% of all climate funding was going into nature. And it has grown over time, and we sort of map influence through these big key moments. You'll see a lot of what we do is focused on the climate movement, it's focused on the COP, it's focused on climate action summits, etc. But it's not all we do, but it's where the movement kind of comes together to make sure that the financial investments are happening, the political momentum is still happening, and then the communications is a kind of layer on top of that. I'll skip over these couple of slides here because in the interests of time. The way we structure our work now that there are 20 plus partners, we basically have these 5 different work streams that you can see here, focused around communications, advocacy. We do some bottom-up storytelling. So this work stream 3 is might be of interest in terms of how we discuss collaboration with you, where we're trying to work with on-the-ground partners who are good storytellers and who can tell the story of nature-based solutions in action. So that might be an interesting one to chat about. And then a 4th work stream is a sort of unbranded communications effort around promoting integrity in nature-based solutions. There's obviously a lot of negative media coverage around nature-based solutions, particularly the voluntary carbon market. So we work behind the scenes with media to try and influence that narrative over time. And then lastly, we have a finance-focused work stream where we're specifically targeting financial institutions to encourage them to reduce deforestation within their investment portfolios and also to put more investment into nature positive. So the year for us this year is just a quick snapshot, no surprises. It's kind of, this is what we focus on, the climate weeks, regional climate weeks, COP28, and we can talk a little bit more about this if this is of interest to you. And then before I finish, I just wanted to give you a couple of snapshots of the type of communications campaigns we did. So back in 2018, when we were really just getting going, we did a lot of work for the Global Climate Action Summit in California. And it was, we had, sort of on the ground campaigning. We had a big social media play, a media play. We also worked a lot with some of the speakers on the stage to ensure that nature was featured prominently at the summit. And this was, and our premise at the time was nature, it's the forgotten solution. And I think, that was almost kickstarting really the campaign for Nature for Climate. And it was very, very successful in terms of breaking out of the bubble. Lots of people were talking about nature as a climate solution. Similarly, we did something similar in New York for the UN Climate Summit. And we were lucky enough to work with Greta Thunberg for a film on nature-based solutions, which really helped. I mean, that kind of thing in terms of being able to get the right type of celebrity voice for the moment was really, really good. And so that rocketed our kind of Nature Now campaign in ways that were sort of unimaginable, really, just by having her involved in some of what we did. And then lastly, just in terms of what we do at COP, we now host a nature zone, which is the sort of collaborative nature pavilion for all the different partners. And we have a big program of events, and we have a press office function and a big social media function. And this is just a highlight from Glasgow, where we were able to work with all our partners and the media to really get a hit in terms of how nature showed up at that COP from a media perspective. So I will stop there and happy to chat and take questions. And there's much more behind this, and I'm really happy to share more information and have a follow-up call, especially with Alina and Lena, if you guys are focusing on comms.
Thanks a lot. That's really impressive, Lucy. Again, I suppose I should not be jumping in. Dan, why don't you carry on sharing this part of the conversation go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's really wonderful to see this, that just the breadth of the different activities that you've done, Lucy, and especially the way that you're monitoring, the effectiveness, which is, very, essential to be able to sense and respond, right, to the activities that you're planning. You want to be able to evaluate those. I'm curious if anyone here, has any questions around, how you're thinking about like setting up those statistics or that monitoring, and how might end pandemics, look at that. What are some of the things that we might here at End Pandemics think about? Like, how would we monitor the effectiveness of some of these campaigns that can help us, guide and curate and help our decision making here?
Yeah, the social media monitoring piece is interesting because it's also extremely cost effective and easy to do these days. So of all the things we do, it's probably the most reasonable. And so I'm really happy to share how we kind of went about that with this organization called Onalytica, who helped us come up with search terms. They helped us map who the influencers are, and they monitor it on a daily basis. We're able to tap into their, kind of system and figure out who's having influence on a day-to-day basis. And then what we've done is we've been able to layer on top of that. We don't just identify them in the digital world, but we bring them in as speakers to events, and we engage with them. And so we've deepened our engagement with some of those influencers using that social media tool.
And then how do you look at those when you're, it's one thing to set up those systems, but then of course you need to put them into practice, right? You need to bring them, take a moment to look at them before a campaign and have the discipline to do that, right? How does that work, at Nature for Climate?
Luckily now we're bigger. We've been able to fundraise. So we actually have a comms team now with 2 comms people in it and some, an agency. And so they are basically using that system to inform everything they do from a campaign perspective. So for example, I know that I was on a call last week where they were all tweaking their LinkedIn strategy because they'd been identifying who the key influencers were, what type of content to put out towards those audiences, how to bring them in, to big events where you then can have more in-depth conversations with them on specific things. So it's really has been very helpful, I think, in terms of using it to shape the campaigns.
It's really great to hear like how you're strategically thinking about these things, right? Because it can really help move the conversation and shift the needle and open people up to, especially if an influencer is starting to speak about nature and they hadn't in the past, right? They have such reach. I'm curious if anyone else has questions, any reflections that were coming up as you're watching the presentation. Yeah, that was a great time.
Well, if I may, Lucy, I wonder, how would you kind of in the big scheme define the main types of audiences of your work? Is it more like, executive type communications with certain, key high profile influences? And that's obviously, one way of an outreach, and to what extent this is combined with your applying more like brute force to reach for the masses, so to say. And then my kind of second part of my question is, now that we've gone through the COVID transformation of communications, how would you say what's the singular most impactful change in your line of communications that is different from what it was 3 years ago, so that we really do things the new way and not try to reinvent try to find comfort in the original patterns of 3 years back. So those questions.
Difficult. Yeah, so the first question's easy. So we definitely target, we always targeted that sort of decision maker decision influencer group. So we were looking at the types of people that go to COP, whether they're policymakers or private sector leaders. And so a lot of our communication is targeted at a relatively niche global audience. We didn't ever try to do public communications. We just don't have the resources to do that. And actually a lot of our members, I think, do that better than us. So the WWFs of the world and TNC, they've got all their programs going on targeting public audiences, and we're just not set up to do that. Your second question is really, really difficult. And I think what's the reflection I have now is just how connected everyone is after COVID, and just how I mean, I'm old school, right? I didn't really understand social media when I first started this work. I was very much, communications was kind of mainstream media and events and publications, and just that power of social media and the connection, I think, is really valuable. And we're on it, but I still think we're perhaps not doing as well as we can, and we're not as cutting edge as we can. That might not be a great answer. I still need to think a little bit more about it, and be happy for you to chat to our comms people, maybe to see what what they've learned in the last couple of years on this. I do think bottom-up storytelling is something we need to do much more of. The sort of social justice movement, the Indigenous people-led storytelling, everyone is more interested in that now than they were 5 years ago. And I think the more of that you can do, the more authenticity you have, the more cut through you get. I think we've changed quite a lot towards that now. We came at that a little bit late. We were a bunch of Global North NGOs, to start with, and we behaved that way. And so I think that's changing a little bit.
I suppose maybe just to clarify, what I meant by my second question is that even if you are targeting to these high influencers, whatnot, politicians, businesses and stuff, everyone, including them, are now increasingly prone to what algorithms do to all of us through social media. So it's not like we're all struggling, but they're sitting in some ivory tower of technocratic precision and deliberation. I mean, these influences of this is the kind of the brute force that influences even the influencers. So to what extent is there any kind of rating between the existing social media platforms, where, like, if you were to choose, well, nobody chooses now, everyone uses everything, but still, are there any platforms which you find more impactful for the work that you do compared to?
Yeah, I mean, given our audience, what we've realized is that LinkedIn, LinkedIn has got a lot better in the last few years, and everyone's using LinkedIn for our audience. Twitter we have to use, and it's still decent. It obviously went through its massive dip in the last 6 months, but we've noticed that the numbers are growing again back on Twitter, and so Twitter is still important. But what that doesn't do is deal with all of the audiences in the different regions, and we are only just beginning to engage in more communications directly with specific countries and regions. Again, we don't really do that, whereas I imagine you would want to reach. Each country will have a different response, I think, for which platform is most powerful for its target audience.
Thanks.
And I apologize. I'm very sorry. I've actually got to jump off. I'm supposed to be on another call, but really happy to have a follow-up conversation, Elina and Lena, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do that for sure. Let's set it up. Who can coordinate that? Dan, is that you coordinating?
Sure, happy to. I can send an introduction.
Cool.
Great. Lovely. Thank
Okay.
you. Thanks ever so much for inviting me.
Yes,
Anyway, I'm
and-
fascinated
and
to
would-
hear about your
would-
work.
Would
Thank
you
you
mind
so much.
sharing your presentation with us just for?
Of course not. Yeah,
purposes?
I'll send that to Daniel. That'll be great.
Thanks
for
a
the
lot.
great presentation.
Thanks, guys. Nice to meet you all. Bye.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
And bye, Lucy.
Okay. Well, this was a bit. Well, I think it was useful. It was useful and interactive, and we should definitely follow up. So thanks, Dan, for bringing Lucy in and for organizing everything. So let's
Absolutely.
let's keep working on what we're doing, and our next month will be on the regular time at 1400 hours UTC, and it will be featuring this university network on One Health, and we'll bring in a speaker from Southeast Asia, and hopefully we'll have discussants from our own troops from Africa and from Latin America. So that will be really cool. So let's get ready for that as well. That will be June 7th, Wednesday at. So on that happy note, I guess we can announce the town hall completed and adjourned. See you next time.
Much, guys. Take
See you
care.
next time. Have a
Bye.
great day. Bye.
Bye, everyone.